All right, guys, welcome to a new CrossFit Ridderkerk podcast. They're going to have talk about the CrossFit Games coming up at the 8th of August, I guess.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks. Probably when you hear this, it's going to be like a week or something. We're doing it in English because we have a new guest. Mark is joining us today to talk about this subject. First podcast, how does it feel?
Good. Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Done a few other podcasts. So this is the first one with the gym though, so I'm excited about this.
Yep, it's going to be fun. CrossFit Games is going to be always fun every year when it's here. It's a fun thing to watch. It's basically the World Championships for CrossFit.
Yeah.
You told me you've seen a bunch of them already. How many did you see?
I probably started watching around like 2010-ish is where I probably started watching the CrossFit Games.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, it's like the World Championships of CrossFit, and there's like a path that every athlete has to take to get to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
Starting with the Open, we both competed in the Open. We're not at the CrossFit Games.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not fit enough yet. But the Open is basically where every season for the CrossFit Games starts.
Yeah.
Like many people know, it's these days it's 3 workouts, and then after that you have a leaderboard, and the top 25 goes to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So quarterfinals is the next step into onto the CrossFit Games, and then from those 25%ers. Only, I think, 25 people from Europe, 25 or 40-ish, went to the semifinals. And then from semis, per region, it's different how many athletes go to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's about it. You're competing at it's a world championship, right?
Okay.
Not yet?
I'm not there yet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So there is a World Championships coming up for functional fitness.
Yeah.
And that is December 13th to 15th in Budapest, Hungary. Mm-hmm. And that is different than the CrossFit World Championship. So obviously the CrossFit Games have a World Championship, which is what we're going to see in a couple of weeks from now. Functional Fitness World Championships is a little bit different in that CrossFit is a brand, like maybe, I don't know what the Dutch equivalent would be, like Pampers or Kleenex are brands, but those brands have become synonymous with the product. And CrossFit has also, as a brand, become synonymous with exercise racing, if you want to call it from that perspective.
Yep.
And so they've done a really good job, I think, with things like the Open and making it accessible to everybody in the world, where you can compete at home. Your local gym is something that I haven't seen in a lot of other sports. We saw some of that kind of stuff through the pandemic with other sports. Yeah. Like I know we did that in disc golf, where we tried to have online putting competitions worldwide. So, and now they've actually, I won't stay here for long, but in disc golf, we've actually come up with a way of playing on soccer pitches against each other around the world.
Okay, that's cool.
So, but it's derived from this concept that CrossFit brought to the industry of sport, saying, hey, how can we get everybody globally competing at the same time? And then from there, they've weeded down to the top athletes in the world to have a world championship. And there's no question, these are some of the fittest people in the world, right? And we're going to talk about some of those people a little bit later as we go. Separate to that, the sport is called functional fitness. Mm-hmm. And now what's happened is there's an International Functional Fitness Federation that is recognized by the IOC, the International Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
That's important because each national federation, so there's the Dutch Federation is the NFFF, the Nederlandse Functional Fitness Federation, is recognized by the NOC, NSF. Mm-hmm. And therefore athletes participating in that can now get funding and are now recognized under Team NL.
Yeah.
And so they have now countries are sending it. So what's ended up happening is now you have representatives from a variety of different countries essentially going to Hungary for the World Championships. And we have seen something like that before in the CrossFit Games, where previously they had people from a bunch of different countries going, like the top athletes from each country going. But then you had athletes that were like, I can't walk on my hands, or I can't climb a rope, or I can't do this. And it didn't really functionally work very well, and especially for TV coverage. But there is a difference between that, and it's cool to see how we have those two different world championships.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we ended with the semifinals, and there's different amounts of athletes per region competing at the games. So this is the difference what Mark's telling with the, what is it called? IWF, right?
Triple F. Functional Fitness Federation.
Yeah, Functional Fitness Federation. So the Functional Fitness Federation sends a person per country, basically, or a couple of people per country.
Yeah.
And CrossFit looks at a region, and it starts at the open, and they compare how well a region has done compared to the rest of the world. Yeah. So just to make it more specific, so in Africa, there was only one spot for someone to go to the CrossFit Games, while in Europe and looking at now North America East, both had respectively 10 and 11 people go to the games. So basically telling like, hey, in Africa, the scoring that has been done at the Open compared to Europe is this much worse. Yeah. So to get the best of the best people going to the games, they've put the regions in, and then they put a number to that.
And even within that, like I watched most of the regional competitions, or what they call semifinal competitions now. Almost all of the participants from Africa were from South Africa.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So like, yes, it's Africa, but essentially we're dealing with one country. There was a handful of athletes from other African nations, but it was pretty much South Africa.
Yeah, and Africa was interesting anyway, right?
yeah.
There were, I don't know exactly, you probably know more about this, but there were, I think from the top 5, 3 or maybe even 4 people got busted for drug abuse, right?
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Africa or Asia, but there was one of those 2 regions.
I'm pretty sure it was Africa.
Had the top 3 athletes banned for drug use. And then I believe the athlete that could go, because the CrossFit Games only allows X number of backfill positions. I think it's like 1 or 2 backfill positions. The athlete that was eligible to go in the backfill position didn't get a visa. And then the next person below that was previously banned for performance enhancing drug use. So there was like, it's a bit of a mess.
Is someone from Africa going anyway now?
I think might be. Might be.
Okay.
I can't say for sure, but I've been trying to follow on social media and stuff, and it might be.
Yeah. So this might be like the 6th or 7th place from Africa competing at
something
the
like that. Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. Yeah. Okay. It starts at the 8th of August. This year, it ends on the 11th, so it's 4 days. I'm not entirely sure if the individuals start on Thursday or Friday, but it doesn't matter. It's a 4-day competition. And what's also fun to mention, it's not just individuals and teams, but it's also adaptives, which is also fun to watch. Every year we see that the individuals get like most attention, which kind of makes sense because it's the most exciting competition ish. And then second is teams, and then after that you get the age groups, which I don't think this year they're competing at the games because it's separate events for the age divisions.
The masters, I don't know about the teens, but the masters are competing at what's called Legends. And that's the event that the masters are competing at. I'm not sure which ones the teams are competing at.
I think it was the one with the bear in California. I'm not sure what the name is, but I think there's a competition for them. With the CrossFit Games, and I don't know how this is with the Functional Fitness Championships, but at the Functional Fitness Championships, do you know the events beforehand?
Oh, that's a really great question. So I like this question a lot. The answer is no, but.
Okay.
So this is, again, one of the things that differentiates functional fitness from CrossFit, in that functional fitness is a sport. And as a sport, there has to be rules governing it so that everybody can use those same rules worldwide, just like we do with soccer or baseball or handball or whatever. So the rules for functional fitness is that there is going to be 6 events. So you always know whether it's a qualifying event, whether it's a national championship or an international event, there's always going to be 6 events. Those 6 events are body weight, strength, power, mixed, endurance, and what's what I'm missing? Skill.
Okay.
So those are the 6 events. Now, what those 6 events look like can be completely different.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, going through the Canadian Championships right now, the strength event is a 6RM thruster.
Yep.
The qualifier, the strength event was a deadlift, a clean, and a shoulder to overhead.
Okay. Yeah.
So what the event can be is totally different.
Okay.
But you do know that there will be 6 events, and they will be in those 6 categories.
Yeah.
But you do not know the time domains. You do not know the movements.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff.
When do you hear it? Is it at the event itself?
Yeah. So I obviously haven't been to a championships yet. But for the qualifier for Canada and for the qualifier for the championships for Canada, similar to the CrossFit Open or CrossFit Games, they announce the workouts.
Yep.
And then you have a set number of days, like 3 to 5 days to complete those workouts, essentially.
Okay. Yep.
In a competition, I would have to check it out, but I'm assuming they're not going to be released too far in advance because they don't want athletes just like for the CrossFit Games, right?
Because that's with the CrossFit Games, most of the events are unknown.
Yeah.
Or if there's something that gets announced, it's never the complete or specific workout.
Yeah.
I think on average, I'm not sure how many, but there are in between 9 to like 12 events in a weekend.
Yeah.
Depending on the year, so you don't know how many events there will be.
Yeah.
And most of the events will be announced on site. So when athletes are at the CrossFit Games, most of the time, I think it's either the day before on or the day itself that they will get to know what the exact workouts will be, which makes kind of what CrossFit does is prepare for the unknown and unknowable.
Yeah.
So it can be anything, can be all kinds of new stuff, which I really like about the games. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Well, even I remember, I don't know if they still do this, but I do remember a year for sure where they had the athletes in a staging area.
Yeah.
And then they would bring them out and perform the workout and then take them off stage to a different area so they couldn't report back to the athletes that were in the staging area. So the athletes were literally coming out and not having any idea what the workout was until they walked out onto the competition floor.
I think, was this the chaos workout? Where they had to row or ski, but they didn't know how many calories until the judge said, okay, you're done and you can go to the next movement.
Yeah, it's possible they've done it multiple times. The one that's coming to mind for me, I'm thinking that it was a barbell ladder. Okay. I know it was a barbell ladder that was on the floor and they were coming out and they're like, okay, I guess, and at that point, I guess you're hoping that you warmed up with the barbell in the back room. But I do know that there was one workout for sure where they did it with a barbell ladder. So, I mean, I'm sure they've done it other times with like, you're going to ski, but you don't know how far, right? Or you're going to do like a trail run, and when you think you're done, Castro's going to show up and tell you to go back again, right? So,
Exactly, there are a couple of events or details about events that we know of right now. One of them is the first event is going to be a run and swim. Which is kind of a trademark for CrossFit for most years. It's not every year. But most of the times they at least start with something more structural. So they started with either a row and a swim or something running or something biking. For this year, it's speculated to be a 3.5 mile run and a 1/2 mile swim. Always a good event to have at the start. Not the most exciting event to watch, but always fun to watch.
I personally, I always enjoy those events that are outside of the arena or outside of the field where it's like, okay, we're going to get you to just do some real life stuff. Again, I'm going to go back, date myself a little bit, but earlier on watching and some people not knowing how to ride a bike and you're like, oh man, this is like, you're one of the fittest people in the world when we give you a barbell, but then you can't ride a bicycle, right? Maybe that's really funny for some Dutch people to be listening and be like, who can't ride a bike? But But yeah, to have some of those things, I always like that first event is sort of outside and a little bit different. And
Yeah. Another event that they announced is event 6, field sprint, then rest, and then 1600 meter run. And details were unclear, but you told me they're using the Happy Star.
Yeah. So if you don't know what the Happy Star is, check out the Happy Star. But from what we've seen online, it's a 170-pound sandbag in the shape of a star for Texas, and then it's got the Texas flag sort of stitched onto the Happy Star. My guess, I haven't read anything online, but this is just my guess. A field sprint is probably truly going to be a field sprint because they've done field sprints in the past, and it is a really good separator event for scoring to do a sprint. So I think they'll actually keep it as a sprint. They'll have a rest, and then it says 1600 meter run. Now, I think run is kind of used as a loose term here. And when I think about that, I think it's going to be something along the lines of what we saw previously. I think it was a couple of games ago where they had to carry, it was a Husselfeld stone or a Husselfeld sandbag. I think they were big orange ones at the time. The star, the way the star is shaped, you can carry it very similar to a strongman implement. And so I'm assuming that this is probably going to actually mimic something that Rogue does, which is that they have that heavy challenge. So Rogue has a heavy challenge that goes on, and it's essentially carrying 100 pounds 1 mile for time. And I think that this is going to replicate that, except this is going to be 170 pounds because these are some of the fitter athletes in the world. 1 mile for time. That's my guess. I hope I'm right because I think that'd be a fun event to watch.
I was thinking they're having a cutoff on, I think they're starting cutoff at Saturday in the afternoon. So I was thinking maybe they're going to repeat what they did a couple of years ago with the sprints, where it's a heat for heat. So if you're like at the, I don't know, top 30, then you advance to the next sprint, and then the top 20, and then maybe a top 10. And then maybe like a top 20 or something does the run with or the 1600 meter run. That could be an option. But we never know how it's going to work. Same thing with Chad. Chad has also announced it's the hero workout, 100 box step-ups for time.
No.
Right?
1,000.
Oh, sorry, 1,000. Yeah, not 100. 1,000 box step-ups per time. Originally, it is with a backpack. I'm pretty sure. But since the announcement, they also announced that it's going to have a twist in it. So that could be anything, right? I don't know if it was it announced as a twist or that it was just, it's not going to be straight up. Which is kind of Castro's way of saying that it's going to be different than here's a box in the middle of an arena and do 1,000 step-ups, right? Because from a spectator perspective, you're like, it's not the greatest event. I do like the concept of the event from the perspective of like bringing awareness to mental health, because the workout Chad was designed from that perspective, in that it was a guy who was training to do hikes and climbs and stuff, and he was taking his gear with him, and he would do 1,000 step-ups in his garage, and now that's where that workout came from, right? So I like the awareness that it's bringing to mental health, and that the CrossFit Games are using it as a platform. As far as using it as a games workout, I'm kind of like, same.
But with what you said, I am curious about what the twist would be. So is it that they're going to maybe run stairs in the stadium? Right? Is that going to be the twist? Is it that they're going to, instead of wearing a backpack, Go Ruck is the sponsor for it, so I'm assuming they're probably going to have some sort of vest or backpack of some kind that they're going to be wearing. But does that also mean that maybe they're going to be like holding on to something like a farmer's carry, or are they going to be putting on like a sandbag on their shoulders, or like? How is that going to work, right? So we don't know. It is event 7, so it is later on in the things, and it's, this one could really blow up some athletes' legs. Like they might be able to do it, but man.
I'm pretty sure it's happening on Saturday. I think they announced that it was happening on Saturday, so it's also not going to be like a finale workout, which is good, because I'd like to be like another workout to be a finale workout where it's a little more spectator friendly.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious what they're gonna do to make it like spectator friendly, which they don't have to do anything, because they've done like half marathon rows or whatever, or marathon rowing even, which are also not spectator friendly.
Yeah.
But it's a good. It could be a good test if all of the other workouts around it are well designed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But it is like I said, it is worth noting that on the Saturday as well is when they're making a cut. We don't know when on the Saturday they're making a cut, but 10 athletes are being dropped on the Saturday.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if they got cut prior to doing Chad. If I was designing the games, I would keep them all in and blow them all up and make them all do Chad and then cut afterwards. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. or maybe even have the leaderboard be a live leaderboard.
Yeah.
And then have a box advancing every 100 step-ups.
Yeah.
And then if you're at the last 10 people not finishing the workout, then you're out.
Oh yeah, so because it's 1,000 step-ups.
Yeah.
Every 100, you just drop the last place person.
Yeah.
I like that.
Would be a fun twist. Yeah.
Can you imagine judging that though? The judges are going to have to be on point because you're going to have 40 athletes.
Yeah.
And they could be within split seconds of each other, and somebody getting cut because your judge wasn't counting fast enough.
Yeah. Which is funny that you brought up judging with the step-ups at the quarterfinals.
Oh my!
Where there was at the quarterfinals, there was a lot of commotion around the box step-ups and athletes not performing box step-ups properly or having them perform properly but not properly judged and stuff.
Yeah.
It was at the quarters, right? Or was it at half finals? I'm not sure. But at least it was a pretty big uproar about box step-ups before, and now they're like, hey, we're doing 1,000.
Yeah.
Good luck judging. Which is gonna be,
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so there's also teams at across the games. Very fun to watch.
Yeah.
They announced 2 event-ish or 2 details about events.
Yeah.
The first event they're gonna use a huge paddleboard.
Yeah.
Which they can fit all 4 people on one of those.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be really interesting. We've seen paddleboards before or paddle-ish boards before at the games, but never, I don't think, in a team format. So that's going to be
not with everybody on it for sure.
Yeah. So that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I think they've speculated it to be the first workout, which makes sense for the individuals to go run, swim, and then have the teams go in the water with the paddle boards. So that's always interesting. Is there a team that you're following or excited to see?
I'm sort of hesitant to say this. I've been watching Noah Olsen online and the videos and the stuff that he was doing with his team. Little disappointed about one of his sponsors that he picked up, and so I've kind of been like, I won't say what the sponsor is, but just a little bit like, come on, Noah. Okay. But that's probably the team that I would follow.
Yeah.
I mean, with that said, though, I'm always curious how teams like Invictus do.
Yep.
I'm always curious about how Mayhem teams do.
Yep.
And then, there's been some really good teams over the years. I think it's CrossFit Oslo from Norway.
Yep.
Usually does really well.
Yep.
So there's some of those things. And when you look at us, I remember watching the European team events and handing out the awards, and I was like, man, I think something like Sweden and Norway together comprise the majority of the European teams. And I was like, okay, man, they're doing something here that's kind of cool. Yep. So it's always interesting to watch that. But I mean, those would be the ones that I'm probably going to follow the most. But I actually enjoy watching the team events. It's kind of fun to see the teamwork and to see some of these unique things that you don't necessarily see in the individial events, right?
Definitely. So. Yep. Another workout they announced, it's event 6. Is a 4 times 400 meter relay, which we also don't really know about any details about that, but that's going to be a fun event to watch. Yeah. It's close, or event 6 for the individuals is also like the sprint and the 1600 meters, so it's probably going to be close together there too. Yeah. It's going to be fun. I have no idea about Masters and Teens about their events. I haven't seen anything being announced. Yeah,
I've been trying to follow it, but I don't have too much information about that.
Like I said, I think it's a separate event too. So, and I don't think it's happening in the same weekend because they wanted to give them more attention apart from the individuals and teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about cut lines a a bit already.
Yep.
So Thursdays there are going to be 40 athletes.
Yep.
Fridays they're still going to be 40.
Yep.
Saturday they start with 40, but at the middle they get cut to 30.
Yep.
And then Sunday there's 20 athletes left.
Yep.
What's your opinion about it? Cutting athletes.
I like it, but maybe that's like I'm familiar with it in other sports. Like golf has cut lines for progressing, and like if you look at other sports, like I think this helps with some of the things you're talking about. So maybe if we do have somebody from every country coming, yeah, okay, you're gonna do your swim and your run, and you finish last place, whatever. But when it comes down to like, we're going to get you in the stadium. We're going to do 2 or 3 events in the stadium. We want the crowd to be excited. We want the crowd pumping. You want them to be competitive events.
Yep.
Like that guy that's in Heat 4, Lane 12, you're like,
Yeah.
it's cool that you made it to the CrossFit Games.
But you're not really competing for anything anymore. So
Yeah, I mean...
You're not going to win anymore. Or,
this is sort of a tongue-in-cheek a little bit for me, because Karina and I were talking about this. So like if I do happen to qualify for Canada and make top 3, and go to Hungary for the World Championships. I'm currently as it stands, I probably look to finish about 3rd place in Canada for the Masters 45 for the functional fitness. The 2 guys above me though have competed like Wadapalooza and like done really well, and they did really well in the CrossFit events. And there's a significant gap between them and myself.
Yeah.
So if I go, there's part of me that feels like I'm going to be that guy that's going to be Lane 12, Heat 4. And Karina just asked me, she's like, well, would you rather not go, or would you rather be Heat 4, Lane 12? And I'd be like, I'm going to be Heat 4, Lane 12 every time.
Yeah.
Like, because I did the work to get there.
Yeah.
Right? But I do value and appreciate the fact that there is cut lines.
Yeah.
And like I said, I am familiar with it in other sports. And not necessarily, even if you look at team sports, right? Like when you go to the European Championships for soccer that we just watched.
Yep.
Not everybody's playing in the final.
Yep.
Sorry, man.
Yep.
You gotta, it's win or go home.
Yep.
And it's, I think it's okay to have that.
Yep. Same. Especially, I think it gives athletes more of a fire to compete anyway. Like because previously at the games, I think the games either got really excited towards a finale when people were like, okay, I have to do this now to like win, or to be in like top 10 and etc. And having like 2 more cut lines gives them 2 more like points in time where they have to be like, okay, I have to like finish well in this workout, which makes it fun. And what I really like is by having less athletes at the later workouts, they have more space and more creativity, more options to do with less athletes competing. They have a bit more time for workouts too, because only half of them are still competing. So they have more time. They need less equipment for certain workouts, making it easier to like do unique stuff with the equipment and stuff. So I'm hoping to see that happen too. Cool. So favorite moments from the past. Let's talk about that. So what I really, really like about like CrossFit Games stuff is when they announce new movements. So pegboards, wall-facing handstand push-ups, crossovers, the pullovers, stuff like that. Because it gives us at our gym and just normal CrossFit boxes, it gives athletes new thing to like get excited about or to get practicing and stuff, which I really like because it keeps like a fire going under all athletes. Like, hey, this might be in the CrossFit Open next year. So last year, for example, crossovers and pullovers, I think were both newly introduced at the CrossFit Games, or crossover double unders, I think it was even. And the next year at the CrossFit Open, everybody got like anxious or excited because there could be new movement in the Open because they were at the CrossFit Games. So personally, I really like those things. To play on that too, I think that's good for training and just having that. I know that we've talked briefly about it. It comes from a course that we talked, the Dumb Shit Dienstag, right? Like just doing sort of random things
And then sometimes from doing those random things, you find, hey, this is kind of a cool thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we honestly, let's be honest, we did it on training on Wednesday.
Yep.
With the strongman class. We're like, we're going to do some like heavy bags to boxes, sort of like an Atlas stone, or we're going to do some stairs. We're going to do like some other movements that we don't normally do. And it's like, okay, you got to be ready to try some of these kind of things, right? And I think it's good.
Yeah, do new stuff with your body that your body hasn't done before.
I've also appreciated something about the CrossFit Games in that it brings new equipment into the industry, right? So we see like the worm, for example, right? And not that was necessarily new, like military training has been using something like the worm for years, but they made it more pop culture, right? They brought the pig in a few years ago, which, yes, it's kind of like a tire flip, but it's
still different.
I remember it was a couple years ago, they had the sleds that they loaded all the kettlebells into, those big sleds. So there's been, almost every year, it seems like there's some sort of new piece of equipment that comes along with the CrossFit Games.
Skiers, spec boards.
Sometimes they're a little gimmicky, but at the same time, it's appreciated that we're bringing these things in to keep it unknown and unknowable, right?
Definitely.
So, I like that.
Something that I really like is like the dominant athletes we've had in the past. So Rich Froning, Matt Frazier, Atia Toomey. I really like to see like how ridiculously well they do under pressure and for multiple years at a time. We had a conversation about this a little bit for the podcast, where the dominant athletes are often good for the show, but not necessarily good for the sport. To say, I think there's like benefits from them. Because it gives the other athletes competing like target to like hit or to defeat at the stuff.
I mean, it's hard because they make it look so easy, right? You have these athletes that are multiple time game winners, back-to-back multiple time game winners, and then they're doing these events and you're like, that movement doesn't look hard, but we both know that if we were to try and do exactly what they did, we would be absolutely pinned to the floor with it, right? And so it's, but that applies in anything in life. If you look at a true expert in their field, they make it look easy, and then the common man tries and you're like, that's definitely not easy, right? Whether it's music or sports or whatever, right? And so you see them and the dominance that they have, but I mean, yes and no. I think that there's some athletes that win and their personalities aren't like great and they aren't as attractive to the community and the culture. I think like the ones that you named, like Toomey, Fraser, Froning, for the most part, I think people were probably fairly attracted to them because they had that like what I was talking to you. I think it was Josh Bridges, and I think it was either Froning doing front squats or overhead squats, and they were coming down the mat. And Josh Bridges put the bar down, and Froning just kept going, and you could see that look on Josh Bridges' face, like, what just happened there? And then the crowd erupts because they're like, oh, Froning's not going to win this event. Froning's not going to win this event. And the whole time Froning's in his mind going, oh, don't worry, I got this. I'm going to win this event. And then as he passes Bridges in the last few steps, because Bridges put the bar down, then the crowd erupts and goes crazy. And I think that some of those things are kind of cool moments to see. It's also cool to see when those athletes don't do well, right? I remember the running event. There was, I think it was something like skipping, rowing, and running. For some reason, that triplet comes to mind. And Rich did not do well on that. But this was the days of like Sunday Rich, like Sunday Tiger in golf. It was Sunday Rich, and then he would just come on Sunday and be like, win, 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 thanks for the gold medal, and I'm out of here. But he would come in trailing a little bit into the Sunday because they had some of these events like the running where it was like, man, you just finished in 32nd place, Rich Froning. What happened? So, I don't know. I think, it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Young athletes doing well is really cool to see.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. She's Canadian. Emma
Lawson.
Emma Lawson. Yeah. It was last year, right? Where she finished second or third, I guess. It's really good. And she was 17, 18, something really young. And seeing those young athletes competing with like athletes who've been at the games multiple times and beating them on some workouts is really cool to see. Because it makes you wonder how fit they're going to be in the future. So that's something that I really like. One of the things what we've also seen is like younger athletes falling apart underneath like the training, the pressure and stuff. But I'm really curious if there's one of them who keeps going and doesn't fall apart from training, because training is really hard, even for like actual like adults. And then younger athletes also having school and other stuff going on is way tougher than I think most people imagine it is.
My bet, I'll put my bet on this, and those of you who know me would know that I've said this before, but Olivia set the record for the snatch ladder this year, right? She did, 17 years old, and I think she's 17 years old, and set the record by like a minute on the snatch ladder. I've been following her online for probably about 2.5 years now. She trains with
Jacob Hebner.
Jacob Hebner, So I think she could be one of those, because if she's being mentored correctly through his training program, and he's been to the games, and he's had lots of other people that he works with, that knowing, hey, look what's happening to some of these other younger athletes where they're like, maybe struggling with some of the mental health aspects of things, that they're able to get ahead of it rather than be reactive to it. They can be proactive to it and help her through that. But she does seem like one of those athletes, and like I said, I've hedged my bets on her for a couple of years now, not just because she did well. I mean, she didn't actually qualify for the games, even though she did super well in that event. Which I don't want to go too far ahead, but ties me to the Iron Hog, who also did really well on the snatch ladder, and going unbroken on those last 2 reps to beat the professor was just like, whoa, that was crazy. Unfortunately, he also didn't make it. But yeah, I think that some of those young athletes is really exciting to watch, right? And I mean, we've got one sort of young. I don't know if we want to still call Haley Adams a young athlete.
She's a decent young, I think.
But I believe, so going back again a few years, I believe she beat Tia on the bike event in one of the first ones that she competed. She beat Tia in that bike event. So I mean, maybe Haley has it in her to do okay. So
she's one of the athletes that I think is going to do really well, especially looking at the semifinals. She gave Tia a run for her money on some events. Not all of them, but there were events where Haley did really well and Tia had to really step on the gas. So that's going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other favorite moments from the past?
I mean, there's always cool stuff, right? Like, I think it's Daniel Brandon, and then how she absolutely just obliterated that handstand course. I was like, she was practically sprinting on it, right? Speaking of that, the other one that comes to mind now as I'm talking about it is watching Matt Fraser sprint on his hands across the field. You were like, what is happening right now? Like he was going faster on his hands than I've seen some people go on their feet, man. I was like, this is crazy that you're doing this right now. I mean, Josh Bridges kissed the baby when he won, and then grabbed the baby and kissed the baby. So like some of those kind of things stand out to me from like years ago. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Finish it up with some predictions for the year.
We've said her name before, Toomey. She's going to be hard to beat. I do think Horvath has the mental game to be able to do so. Like when you're watching what Laura's doing online, she's really sort of just in her own world, being like, you see her rock climbing, and you see her spending time with her dog and her family and just kind of enjoying. She seems to be really taking care of that mental health side of things. But when you watch her train, when it's time to go, it's time to go. And so I think she could give a good push, and I think it'll be exciting to see those two competing for it as well.
I think most people see that as like the biggest like battle at the games this year, Horvath and Toomey. I'm curious. It would be really cool if Toomey wins it. It would be her 8th, so then she would be the most decorated individual athlete for individual competitions. But it would also be really cool to see Horvath actually like beat the champ while she's there.
Or an unknown. I'm a big fan of the underdog, man. I'm a big fan of just some like a random surprise. I'm a big fan of those things. So
we talked about her, Haley Adams. I think she will do pretty well. I don't know if she's gonna win, but she will probably be like, I'm guessing top 5-ish.
Yeah,
somewhere there.
Yeah.
On the men's side, I feel Roman Krennikov is a decent candidate to win it. Yeah.
I mean, there's no question that Roman is a fan favorite, right? When he goes to a workout, it doesn't matter what the workout is, he puts the pedal to the metal and he puts it all on the line, and people love watching that, right? But I also think that's partly his downfall, right? And so I mentioned this to you before the podcast started, but I'll say it here, is that you have guys like Jeff Adler, Canadian guy, give a shout out to, who also has the ability to go really fast. He's a two-time champ. He's good at what he does. And I think when you have a guy like Roman who just goes as fast as he can in everything that he does, a guy like Jeff Adler just hangs back just enough behind him until the last round and then goes, hey, I won, I got the points on you, right?
Yep.
And so I know that Roman is connected to the Mayhem team, and obviously Rich is very, very strategic in what he's done. It was partly the reason why he was so successful. So I think with a little bit more strategy from Roman, he could do really well, because his ability to go, he's really got his engine and his power, everything. He's there. Yeah. I think just a little bit more strategy from Roman but we'll see how that plays out. Shout out to the Canadians again. I saw a statistic online, 23% of the North American athletes going to the CrossFit Games are Canadian. And when you look at the percentage of population in Canada versus the United States, it's actually quite significant that 23% of the athletes are Canadian. So is it going to be Brent Fikowski or Patrick Vellner's year?
Yeah.
I still think so, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm also curious if they're actually going to win it. I think they're really good athletes. I don't think they got the edge to like win the thing. It would be really cool. One of the things that we're also going to have an eye out for is Linda Cheeseman, as she's called by the American announcers. I think she's possibly might be top 10.
Okay.
In Europe, she ended in 7th place from the 10 who go to the game. So looking at that and then seeing all the other like American region stuff, I think it's going to be really hard for her, but she might be surprising.
First Dutch person to qualify though, right?
Yeah, first individual Dutch person. Yeah, we've had some teams before. Yeah, but the first individual, except for like the year when every country had someone there. But
that's cool.
Yeah, so we're going to be really cool. If you guys are interested, we'll have a watch party on Saturday. It's let me say this correctly, it's the 10th of August at 7. It will be in Sportbit. We'll have some more details about it later. Other than that, unless you have anything else that you wanted to talk about, then that's it for this podcast. And we'll see you guys later.